Wow. Okay. So anybody out there who still thinks running is just like putting one foot in front of the other, well, they need to see these logs. Seriously, you are amazing out there. And today we're diving deep into your most epic runs. And I'll be honest, I'm already feeling inspired because we're not just talking about finish lines here. It's more about what all those miles you've logged really tell us about you.
You know, it's amazing what we can learn from things like someone's race choices, their training, even like the little details they put in their running log.
Totally. And like I'm looking right now at your notes from that Andorra Ironman swim. You wrote closest thing to a panic attack. But you still powered through and finished strong. That's hardcore. But today, let's unpack that grit, not just the medals.
It's true, though. We connect with the human part of it, right? So it's not just about these crazy distances. It's those moments of struggle, the funny parts, even those what was I thinking choices that make this really interesting.
You got it. And speaking of what was I thinking, remember that headphone incident you mentioned? Yeah, we are definitely getting to that story later. It's pure gold. But first, I gotta ask. You've taken on high altitude, crazy weather. I mean, the tougher the race, the more you seem drawn to it. What's that all about?
Well, it goes beyond just liking a challenge. It's about really pushing your limits, redefining what you thought you were capable of. There's a real drive there, a refusal to just check things off a list.
And yet you're so strategic about it all, too. I mean, you track everything from nutrition to recovery, like with that Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim, which you chose as your most epic run. Me personally, I'd just be happy to say I hiked it. But you're prepping for success on a whole other level.
Well, that choice speaks volumes in itself. It's not just about how iconic it is. It's the logistics, the mental pluckness that run takes. You're not out there to conquer the terrain. You're respecting it, preparing to become a part of it.
Which actually is a huge key part of your running now that I think about it. You're drawn to runs that are as much about the experience as the athletic achievement. The big Sur Marathon, that Escape from Alcatraz thing, it's like you're collecting stories, not just miles.
It suggests a certain curiosity, don't you think?
Mhm.
A desire to connect with something bigger than yourself, whether that's nature, history, or the spirit of a place.
And this is where that question of why behind each run gets really fascinating because, yeah, anyone can sign up for a marathon. But what makes you choose the races you do, and what does that tell us about you?
Well, we're often drawn to activities that line up with our values, sometimes even without realizing it. So when we look at your choices, we see a pattern, a sort of tapestry woven from ambition, deep respect for history and nature, and maybe even a dash of mischief. That headphone incident is really calling to
Oh,
me.
don't worry, we are getting there. But before we do, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the importance of preparation. It comes up again and again in your logs. And it's more than just training plans and gear lists.
Right. It's about minimizing risk while maximizing the experience. You put in the work, but you're also choosing challenges where preparation isn't just about crossing the finish line. It's about truly being present in the moment.
And that's where choosing that Grand Canyon run gets really interesting because there are so many layers of preparation involved.
Absolutely. We're talking physical conditioning, meticulous planning, even anticipating the mental hurdles of such a demanding run. It's like you're orchestrating this symphony of preparedness.
Mm.
And that says a lot about how you approach not just running, but life itself.
Okay, now I'm getting chills. But before we get too philosophical, let's bring it back down to earth, or at least back to the starting line. You mentioned wanting to quit halfway through the CIM. Most people would have stayed on that bus. So what kept you going?
Well, it's one thing to push through physical pain, but to silence that voice in your head saying give up during a storm, that shows a level of resilience that's truly incredible. And the theme that pops up throughout your running journey, I mean, think about it, that Andorra Ironman swim hill, you were struggling, but you still found the humor to joke about swimming backstroke, or even that headphone incident, which we are definitely getting to.
Okay, see, now you've got me really wanting to hear that story. But you're right. Each
Yeah.
of these runs, even the ones with hiccups, shows this incredible ability to adapt and just keep going.
It's more than endurance. It's about overcoming. You're not just gutting it out. You're finding ways to use those tough moments, almost like you're turning discomfort into fuel.
Which, honestly, is a pretty amazing superpower to have in running or anywhere else, really. And it seems like that ability to dig deep really comes out when you're running with other people. You mentioned training buddies, the support of your family. It's like these shared experiences add another dimension to the whole thing.
Absolutely. Running can be so personal. But those moments of connection, whether it's struggling together or celebrating a win, that's where the magic happens. It transforms individual accomplishment into something much richer, something shared.
And speaking of shared struggles, remember that insane storm during the CIM? You wrote about bonding with other runners over porta potties, which I gotta say is not the mental image I had of a marathon experience.
And that's just it, those unexpected moments of humor, that shared misery that becomes camaraderie. That's the kind of thing you can't plan for. It speaks to your ability to find the positive, even when you're knee-deep in, well, you get the picture.
Okay, I'm loving this. And it makes me think about how you approach those why questions in your logs. You're not just asking why you run, but why this specific race, why this training plan. You're constantly analyzing, looking for lessons beyond just finishing.
That's a clear sign of a growth mindset. You're treating these runs as chances for self-discovery. And that's where the real insights are. It's not just about the miles themselves. It's about understanding what those miles tell you about yourself.
Which brings us back to that headphone incident during the Andorra Ironman.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you're in the middle of this grueling race. You know you're following the rules, and then you get into it with a race official. Talk about commitment.
You know, that story really highlights that interesting balance between your respect for authority and your willingness to question it when you think it's necessary. It shows your sense of fairness, for sure, but also your ability to stand up for yourself even under pressure.
And let's be real, most people would just grumble to themselves and moved on. But you used that interaction, that frustration, as motivation to push harder. That's next level.
It's all about channeling your emotions effectively. You felt that frustration, but you didn't let it stop you. Instead, you turned it into fuel, which shows a remarkable awareness of yourself and your emotions.
Hey, maybe just a little bit of stubbornness too, right? In a good way, of course.
Perhaps, but it's that tenacity, that refusal to give up even when you hit unexpected roadblocks.
Yeah.
That's what's helped you succeed, both in running and in other areas of life.
So we've talked about your love of a challenge, the importance of preparation and community. But what I'm hearing is there's something more. This ability to not just get through challenges, but to really learn and grow from them.
You got it. And that leads us to what I find most fascinating about your running journey, the evolution. Your earlier logs are all about speed and endurance, getting those personal bests. But as time goes on, there's a subtle shift.
Yeah, you're talking about how your goals changed over time, right?
Right.
Like the early logs were all about hitting those PRs, that Boston qualifying time.
Right.
And then it became more about, well, the
But
experience.
it's a natural progression. We start out looking for that external validation, those concrete signs of achievement. But as we grow, we start to appreciate the rewards we get just from doing it. The joy of moving our bodies, the connection with nature, the camaraderie.
Which is why picking that Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim is so telling, right? It really shows that shift in your focus.
Exactly. That run was less about conquering a distance and more about immersing yourself in that incredible landscape, embracing the challenge and supporting your friends through the rough patches. It's like you were searching for an experience that reflects life itself. The ups and downs, the curveballs that come your way, the importance of preparation, and ultimately the connections we build along the way.
And that's a recurring theme in your logs, isn't it?
Definitely.
Those storms at the CIM, the altitude struggles in Andorra, they all pushed you to understand your limits, but they also made you more determined to push past them.
You've gained this incredible self-awareness and understanding of your own resilience. You've learned that you can handle discomfort, overcome setbacks, and come out the other side even stronger. That kind of knowledge is so valuable, not just in running, but in facing whatever life throws at you.
And it seems like you've taken those lessons beyond just running, wouldn't you say?
Without a doubt, the themes of challenge preparation and community, those threads run through all your logs. But they're not limited to running. They show a broader approach to life, a way of navigating the world with purpose, resilience, and a deep appreciation for those shared human experiences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into your running journey, what have we learned? It's obvious that you're not just putting in the miles, you're crafting a life full of adventure growth and connection.
You've shown us that the most epic runs aren't necessarily about being the fastest or going the farthest. They're the ones that force us to look inward, to discover our own strengths, and embrace the full range of human experience.
What a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.